Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Good morning, Glenn.
Hey, what's up, my Mikey?
I'm looking at our muffins, and we both eat the
You're
top
looking
of the
or
muffin.
you're eating one?
I'm doing both. But we're both picking at the muffins, just the top, the
yummy part.
Yeah, the yummy part.
I know. You have to put up with the rest. Hey, you know what? That's almost like life.
I know, right?
There's part of life that's yummy. There's part of life that's real exciting, and then there's I got to cut the grass.
Uh-huh.
Right,
Yep,
and
yep.
that's the rest of the muffin. No, man. You know what? I'm just sitting here being reminded that this whole sobriety stuff is kind of cool, right? Especially when a lot of sobriety is like the top of the muffin.
Yeah, right.
The good part, right?
Yep.
Or at least there's more top than bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I guess these days. But I'm also reminded it's not a light switch.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah.
It's not. Hey, I didn't go to rehab and kneel by the side of my bed and then walked out of there healed. It is.
Right.
It is a slowly but surely.
It's a grind. It takes
takes time.
There's work to do.
It eventually.
Yeah.
You want to take trash out or?
Yeah, I'm just tidying up. We have a guest this morning for Pete's
I know.
sake. I got to be tidy.
Let's just jump right into the gas, man. Since you're doing maintenance work over there.
Yeah, so along life, I got so Glenn does
I love how it works.
I know, right? So Glenn does the social media, and I do the website stuff, and so we got a little form that you can fill out on our website, and please do let us know what's going on out in Listenerville. And anyway, Mike, this guy Mike, hi Mike, good morning.
Morning, Mike.
Good morning. Good morning, guys.
Kind of bounced back and said, hey, love your show, love what you're doing, and which, by the way, thank you for the thank you, but we love doing it. We do it for ourselves. Really, our goal is to help one person, and
We've never made a penny.
Never made a penny. We just love doing what we're doing. So you can feel our pain. You're an author. So anyway, Mike reaches out, and he doesn't say anything about being an author.
Right.
Mike just says, hey, I'd love to share some story with you a little bit if you got time.
Silent excellence.
Yeah, so we connect on the phone. I'm like, I look up, he's an author. And so usually what I like to do is if we have an author on, I usually like to get the book and read it. But Mike and I connected just this week, and I said, we're going to be in the coffee shop this week. Can you come in? I promise I'll order the book. I'll promise I'll read it. But I just like your tone, and I like your bent on authentic sobriety, and I just thought maybe we'd jump in the coffee shop. So welcome, Mike. I know you got limited time this morning with us in the coffee shop, but tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life these days. Great smile, by the way.
It's awesome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this morning. Recovery is my life. I started this journey probably 15 years ago or so, and that's kind of when my life was kind of falling apart. And my kind of history here is, I went to rehab 15 years ago, and I would get sober for a couple of years. And then, then I'd messed up my life again. I just completely burned it down again, as we talked a little bit about, Mike. And I never really, did the work, right? I mean, getting sober and sobriety and recovery are many different pieces to that. Getting sober, you get the booze and the drugs out of your body in 4 or 5 days, and you are technically sober. And I lived sober for a while, but I just never really did the work in recovery. I never really opened the book and went through the steps. And that was kind of my history and my pattern, until I completely, kind of destroyed everything in my path. And then when I surrendered and I started doing the work, I got a sponsor and I started doing all these things that people kept telling me to do. Then my life started to move in the right direction.
Yeah, isn't that so true? I mean, abstinence is a key ingredient, but it's only one part. It's only one part of this program of living. It's just one part. Don't drink. Don't drink. Go to meetings. Do your stuff. Do the work.
Yeah, exactly right. And I thought, okay, if I put down the bottle and I put down my substance, then my life would turn into the right direction. And I learned through sobriety that that really is not the case. I really had to do the work to understand these miscalculations in my mind, and how I kind of thought about myself. And I think we all have that feeling of, not feeling comfortable in our own skin. But my addiction, my substance use disorder was in my mind. It was in my mind from a younger age. And when I started to really uncover that, and when I really started that really through the 4 step, as I started to look at some of these inventories, and once I started to understand those pieces, it started to turn me, or accepting these character defects. And even though that I have those still, in my mind, I can recognize them. And that's the most important thing for me, is recognize them. I suffer from not feeling comfortable in my skin. I suffer from comparing my life to other people. And, there was a lot of factors there. There was a factor of genetic disposition. There was a factor of some environmental things, and then some trauma things. And when I started to kind of see that trifecta, and I still have to work on that every day, it turned my life into a different direction. And that was huge for me. Just creating the awareness around that it wasn't just me trying to, pick up a bottle and escape from it. And that was a piece that I did for years and years and years. And so that's what's helped me in my recovery.
What's interesting is that being an alcoholic and drug addict as I was, right, it was a pretty simple go forward plan. Take a swig, swallow a pill, and take 2 steps forward, and let's see where that takes you. What you just described is more complicated. You're sober, you're abstinent, so you've got this point of clarity, but now you have to start dealing with these emotions and peeling the onion back and really trying to figure out what is making you tick, negatively or positively. And
Right.
and that's what you just described to me. And it's so, yeah, but I love your baseline point, which is you got to do the work. You got to kind of figure this stuff out, and it is rewarding if you do that.
Yeah, and the one thing I picked up is, regardless of your feelings, you just do it anyhow.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's I call that the grind. But, for 50 years of my life, I only acted based on how I felt, or I would do the next action based on how I wanted to feel.
Right.
And Mike, as you were sharing that, it really reminded me, hey, I just live life today based on doing the next right thing. I don't care how I feel. I just do it.
Right.
And
right.
most of the time, I don't feel like doing it in the moment, but the feeling comes afterwards.
But the other thing I know about you, Glenn, and I'm hearing from Mike, is this level of self-awareness that was never there before, because I didn't care. I drank, I drugged, I didn't care. There was no awareness of what I was doing. I love when you said the destruction that you caused around you. I mean, I thought it was a selfish disease. I thought I'm just not hurting anybody but myself. It was farthest thing from the truth when I came to see what I had really done. I caused a lot of destruction to myself, but to a lot of other people as well. So somewhere along the line, so about 5.5 years sober. How sober are you? How many years?
I don't talk about my sobriety date, and my sobriety date is there's a reason behind that. I only share that with my higher power and my sponsor.
Okay.
So I do have years of sobriety. And the reason why is I kind of talked about my story is, I would get sober for a couple of years, and then I would start to pound my chest, think I've got this thing cooked and everything's moving forward. So, and when I sat down and talked to my sponsor about this, I tip my hat every year that I have I have another year of sobriety. But for me, it's really one day at a time.
Thank you.
It really is just one day at a time. It's just a great way of not just in my sobriety and how I live my life today, right? Nothing is guaranteed tomorrow. And I've always had this mindset of living in the past and thinking about the future. And I really have to work on that one day at a time to stay focused on what's in front of me right now.
Didn't expect that as an answer. Loved it.
No,
Loved
I think it's great. You know,
It's a great
in fact,
answer.
I can totally feel. In fact, you know, I was kind of trying to get to that space a couple of years ago. Mike and Mikey here, you know, I'm like, I don't want to celebrate. I don't want to talk about it, right? I just want to live for today and focus on today. And, you know, I was the guy at 1 year sober. I would call up all the treatment centers. I'm like, hey, do you want me to speak and tell everybody how to do this?
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
and I mean, that was just ridiculous, you know, and that didn't go over very well.
Right.
You know, but Mikey says, hey, Glenn, you know, it's good for you to share your sobriety with other people in the room to give them hope. So I do like the fact that you say you have years sober.
Yeah, I love that. So somewhere along your journey of sobriety, you picked up a pen and decided to tell your story in a book. Talk about the process of what made you think, because it's a daunting task to write a book. Had you had experience in writing before, or what drew you to tell your story?
No, you know, it's a funny thing, because I wasn't never a writer, and you know, I never really enjoyed English as didn't really enjoy school when I was growing up, and I actually always struggled with English. And when I started this process probably 3 or 4 years ago, and, you know, I just released this book probably 9 months ago. So it took me a long time to kind of put these things together. And I was kind of in and out of it, to be honest with you. You know, I'd write something but the last year, I really just spent a lot of time. I put, you know, 5-6 hours a day in reading it. And the funny thing is, when I kind of had the draft together, I was sharing this with a couple of my friends, and they're like, are you out of your mind writing this stuff down? So I knew that I had something, because I was getting a lot of reaction from individuals. And then as I just kind of proceeded with it. But, you know, what you said something, Mike, was, you know, when I started writing this book, I thought it was a solitary journey, that I was going to figure out all my, you know, my issues. And in fact, I did. Like, I really had to get down to it to start to understand the disease of my substance use disorders, and then the effects of all my family. So, and I kind of through kind of doing this, I realized this story wasn't about me. It was a story about us. It was a story about my family, my friends. And even though that I could talk to somebody face to face and they would say, why do you continue to destroy your life? You know, the verbal of me regurgitating that to somebody just didn't fit for them. They're like, I don't understand it. So I said, well, maybe I should write this down. Maybe, and then that's what really kind of progressed it moving forward. And then I didn't know, I mean, I'll be honest with you, you don't know what your work is like. You know, you think that you're writing something, and then you slide it across the table to somebody else. And that's when I started to work with, you know, professional editors and things like that. And they came back to me and said, this is a really good story, right? Yeah. This is well written. And then from there, I just kind of continued to push, you know, just like my sobriety, I had to work on it every day. Right.
So, you know, the reviews are stellar, you know, 5 out of 5 stars on Amazon. But the irony is that is not your vendor of choice. Though that is the repository of all kinds of great reviews. You're doing something unique with your book. I saw, right? So you actually are published, but you're actually supporting the recovery community through this work.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, you know, as I was kind of halfway through this, I kind of had this moment of, you know, because it wasn't this solitary journey, that it was, you know, the effects that I had, you know, hurt and damaged along the way, and family and friends. I realized that because it was a story really about us, I said, well, then how can I give back, right? Because my history in AA and recovery, like I said at the beginning, was, you know, I was kind of in and out of it, right? So I realized that I had to be fully engaged 110% every day in recovery. And from there, I just decided to donate portions of my book to recovery centers and recovery, you know, organizations to help them. And that's been such a blessing in my life, because in my book, actually near the end, I kind of I kind of, I've shared all my stories, and it's so nice when people, that's one of the best things that I have experienced since writing this book, is that people, now have raised their hand and said, I've had enough, and they can share their story with me. And that's been great. So I've been able to donate, portions of this book to some great charities. I just did Chris Heron, the Heron Foundation. I was able to donate to him. And his incredible story. And then I just did a podcast for Angels Against Addiction, and I was able to donate to them. Now it's weird because, like you said kind of in the beginning, the book business is not really about making money.
Right.
It really isn't. It's about creating the awareness around these things. Right. And so I just continue to get involved. I do a lot of speaking engagements now. I'm involved in my hometown of Chester County. I'm an active member of the Drug and Alcohol Council. And so I'm just really in it, and I continue to do that. I'm working with the Karen Foundation now, which is incredible, because that's really where I started my journey. Karen Foundation and their recovery centers 15 years ago. 2 months ago, I was up there, and they actually put my book into their bookstore, which was just an unbelievable moment in my life. Mm-hmm. And I continue to work with them on their speaking circuits and continue to create awareness around that. And it's just been such a gift for me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Trading awareness. And that's one thing I picked up, Mike, as you were talking earlier about and Mike mentioned it, self-awareness. And I think that's really important, right? Because, it's just like what I always say, the quarterback sneak, right? It's a great play in football. It's one of the best plays. But you got to be aware of where you are in the field to be able to call that play. And it's a great play if you're trying to get 1 or 2 yards. It's not a good play if it's 4th and 17.
Right.
And so awareness is really important.
Yeah. No, Mike, this has been really good. And let me take this thing way off the rails here. So where are you from, Mike?
I'm from outside of Philadelphia.
Now. See, there we go. I did that for my partner.
No, I knew there was an accent there, so I grew up in Willow Grove.
Oh, okay. All right. So
right up the road.
In Westchester.
Yep, right up the road.
So, okay. Yeah. So, go Birds, right?
Same accent.
Yeah. So tell me about the book title, Lost in London.
Yeah, well, Lost in London, A Journey from Insanity to Acceptance. And I think that kind of sums it up, A Journey from Insanity to Acceptance. But my book title, Lost in London, there's two kind of pieces there. I think lost can everybody, I think, in their life can relate to being lost in some time in their lives. So, and then I was on a business trip, which is a part of this book and a part of a couple of chapters there, that I was in London. I had a really good job. I've been in international security for quite some time. And I had been sober for about maybe a couple of years. And I went there, work was going well, and I went out with that night with some colleagues, and someone handed me a Heineken, and that was it. And I just, from that point on, I couldn't stop drinking. And I was in London probably for three or 4 days, completely, lost in my own world. And it was a very, very scary time for me in my life. So that title, Lost in London, just really stuck for me.
So I think that's really cool, because that's happened to me a number of times with my relapses. And so one of the things I do, in fact, Mike, I like to say I do 26 things a day, a week, a month to stay sober. One is accountability, right? So, for many years, I was ashamed of my alcoholism and I didn't tell anybody. But now I build guardrails around me. And every one of my business people, every one of my investors know that I don't drink, right? So when I'm at these functions now, right, I mean, there's people that hand me something, and I've actually had somebody put their hand out and stop them, and it's like, man, I got my team, right? Mm-hmm. And so what turned from shame into now, a superpower, right? Because now I got this force field around me. Every one of my partners, everybody in my company knows I don't drink. You know, I was just out on a boat cruise. You know, hey man, here's this cool mojito, and I was like, he doesn't drink. You know, it's almost, you know, so it's a field of defense. You know, but I get the lost in London. I've never been lost in London, but I've been lost in a lot of other cities.
Yeah. You hit a nerve. You hurt a nerve with me. It's funny because we could throw that term around flippantly, right? I was lost.
Mike was lost in Vegas.
I was just going to say I was lost in Vegas one time, but
one time. Come on.
Yes, but that lost, you know, hit me at my very core. I was so lost
in life.
It was the most painful, interfeeling. And I've experienced death of grandma, death of dad, death of brother-in-law. I've experienced all those things. That feeling of lost, really, it just rocks me.
Yes. Yeah.
Rocks
Yeah.
me.
And I think I like what you said there is, you know, that, you know, we've all kind of experienced that. And it doesn't have to be the physical loss. It's just the loss of our souls and, you know, and the loss of all these things that, you know, that sobriety gives us. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's a really amazing thing for us, to be able to do that. And like, you know, when people ask me about my book, they say, you know, what's your book about? And I said, my book about is my vulnerability to be honest. Now, I use my platform of recovery for that, but you also can replace that with all kinds of other things in your life. It's the vulnerability to finally get honest. And what you're saying is that, you know, we recover out loud, right? And when I wrote this book and what I do now, everyone knows that, you know, that I don't drink, you know, so. That's good because what you said, Glenn, is I surround myself with people that know everything about me. And before, I would kind of hide that. You know, I didn't want people to know that.
Right.
And eventually those pieces that we hide in our lives, you know, it's that honesty, it's those little white lies things, they come back to get us.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, sobriety is not, like I said when we started, not just about putting down the drink. It's that living that life in that honesty and outward capability of you know, of being there and recovering out loud.
Yeah. Who's the perfect reader for this book? Somebody who's lost, somebody who's early in recovery, a family member of somebody in recovery?
I think you know, I think it resonates with a lot of individuals. I think you know, when I was just doing another interview, and the woman that was interviewing me was saying, you know, this book really resonated with me. She struggled with somebody in her family that had a substance use disorder, and you know, so I think it resonates with a lot of individuals. And like I just mentioned, it's, you know, the vulnerability of just being honest in your life. So I think that it's a wide, you know, audience out there. And I think, you know, the thing about it is addiction has touched everybody. Right.
Yes.
And there's not a person that can go down the street and say, hey, you know, you don't have a family member or you don't have somebody that you know that has struggled with this. It's just so I think that's the big piece that my book can do is resonate with a broad audience.
And your desire for a perfect takeaway from your book, what's your 1-sentence message for that you'd like to tell the reader? That you'd like to really get across?
I think, you know, from my side is that it's really stepping into that vulnerability of being honest in our lives and knowing that there's help along the way and that you don't have to suffer in silence. And, you know, there's all these connections that you make and your life can expand beyond just some of this isolations that we all do, whatever substance use disorder that is, or whatever struggle that you're having in your life. It has to be something about, you know, connecting, you know, to something that can put you into, you know, a better situation in your life. And I think that's the thing for me is that, you know, raise your hand, tell somebody, hey, I've had enough, and I want to make these changes. And the thing about it is people always say in recovery, you got to change everything. But I also have to look at it. It's letting go of that person that you are not. And that really resonated with me, letting go of all these things that I wasn't. And I think that's kind of what my book resonates with individuals.
That's awesome.
Really
Mike.
cool.
Do you have a website like for Michael Shooty?
Yeah, I do. It's www.just-today.org. And it's a great website. It talks about the book, talks about my journey, talks about some of the speaking engagements, talks a little bit about some of the things that we're doing from a charitable foundation. It's there's a lot of information there. To reach out.
Great, and there's a link on your website to go buy the book. Where the best avenue, not maybe.
The great thing. The good thing is, like a couple of weeks ago, it was sold out on Amazon, which is crazy. And but it is through Amazon, and I do ask people to consider going to my local publisher called BookBaby. And BookBaby works with me more on the charitable foundation things. It's just another vehicle, and there's a discount there. But yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for being. And by the way, just a side note, anybody go to our resource room. By the time this airs, we'll have a link to that book in the resource room on our website, www.Sober.Coffee. And Michael, it's been great having you this morning. And
great to meet you.
Yeah, it's always good to have a little Philadelphia flavor in the room.
That's right, Philadelphia freedom.
That's right. Michael, thank you so much. Best of luck to you.
See you, man.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@sober.coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.